This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila. And over the course of history, we've always celebrated the people that have done things first. First around the world, first in flight. But nowadays, it's more about not being first, but the person who does it better. Think about Facebook. That wasn't the first social media platform. The iPhone, not the first smartphone, but they all did it better. And my guest today is obsessed with becoming a better leader. His name is Damon Stafford, and a little while back, he wrote the book, Believe in Better, the evolution of core principles that pioneered an industry. Damon is the CEO of Alpine Intel, a company dedicated to helping customers reach peak performance through the insurance policy lifecycle. Damon and I are going to talk about mastering self-awareness, the importance of being a transparent leader, and how we can all become better. Damon Stafford, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing great. Hey, Joe. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And so, Damon, I want to start with something that, I found in your book, and I feel like we're long lost brothers because you talk about the importance of self-awareness. And man, Damon, you know me for a long time, but I've been on a high horse for a long time about how we have a self-awareness problem, specifically in America, how we really have trouble grasping that the world is not revolving around us. It's not life in the key of me. There's other people around us. And I'm curious for you, when did you come to that realization? Because I don't think it's one of those things that, unless you're intentional about it, you realize you're not good at.
Well, it occurred to me within business, just like being aware and trying to listen more than others, but to understand the perspective of the person on the other side of the table. And if you take a step back, and particularly in business settings, and you see the contrast of personalities, experience, you name it, wealth, whatever it may be, that the lack of awareness of like some executives, or it can be really either side of the table, is just like out of this world. I think in the book I wrote something about understanding the perspective of the person on the other side of the table, and the story is someone talking about their burn rate, their country club burn rate, and not understanding that their monthly burn rate at a country club was probably like half of the salary of the person on the other side of the table. So over time, like experiences and stories like that really opened my eyes.
Well, and for you, it was important enough to you basically start the book talking about that. Why do you think it was so important to from the jump get into that?
To set the stage, and that along with communication, but some of the simpler things in business and in life that are often overlooked are like the most important. And so I think kind of kicking it off and setting the table with a bang was the main point.
Yeah, it's funny too how I think and it could be technology probably does this too, where we don't have we become hardened and we don't have feelings. That's why I'm not on Facebook, because you'll see one post and it could be the most innocuous thing, and then the comments are hundreds of people just dunking on that person. And in 100 years, you would never do that to a person in real life. You would never. And I always find it funny when people dunk on celebrities on social media, because the second they were ever to meet them in real life, they'd be like, "Oh my God, can I have a selfie with you? I'm such a big fan."
Right. Sign my hat.
Right. Yeah. It is funny how maybe technology has played a part in it. Maybe just the fact that we kind of silo ourselves out from the rest of the world many a time. Maybe it was the pandemic. Who knows? But it's definitely a problem. And obviously to you, it was important for you to start talking about that in the book. But you also get into one of the things I want to point out about you is your candidness. You talk about the for lack of a better word, the shit you've been through. In terms of sharing that as a leader, because I think, I talk about the pandemic, I think there was this emphasis on empathetic leaders, authentic leadership, transparent leadership. So there was sort of a rise in that within the last 5 years. But before that, the leader was the stoic leader, the unemotional leader. If, the everything's going great leader. But you weren't afraid to share a lot of the stuff you went through to get where you are and to get through on the other side. So talk about that in terms of your idea of being so candid.
I think there's this great power in being honest. I don't mean power in the standard definition, but maybe a little bit. And no one was born into success. I mean, some may have like a great start, right? The trust fund, the trust fund launch. Nothing against those with trust funds, by the way. But the reality is it's hard, hard work and a grind, and ultimately like it's not success from day one. And I think having the ability to be honest like sets you apart and allows you to be unique. And it's hard, that's hard work, sometimes to be transparent. You could hurt the feelings of the person that you're talking to. You could maybe give more information than you want to give on a certain topic. But the reality is if you, well, for me anyway, when you do that, you kind of own the room and you have everyone's attention. And if you have their attention, then you have a good opportunity to, influence whatever you're trying to influence.
That's great. And the title's Believe in Better. And it's funny because, like every good businessman, you have a good acronym, like you have the Believe framework. But tell me about Better, because I think this is one of the things, again, long lost brothers here, Dan, because I feel like we can't really change, but we can improve. Like, I think we're all like human iPhones. We can update our software to become better at either self-awareness or to become better at being more open. But tell me about this idea about Better.
I think it came from soul searching, right? Like, what am I doing here? What, you have like success in life, or, you have like negative things happen in life. And it's like what gets you out of bed, the whole, like, what gets you out of bed every day type question. And to me, I landed on Better because like, it's not just about the cash, the AFC. It's not just about like, the feeling of like managing or having more people on your team and like working your way through the corporate, the corporate org chart. It's just the like the journey to have more of whatever it is you're looking for, knowledge, like thirst for whatever it may be. And so for me, like Believe in Better encompasses like a whole lot of things. And I don't know, I don't think it's the meaning to life. Who knows what that is? But for me, it helps feed the beast and like the drive for what's next. And so to me, it's a positive thing in that there's never an end date, right? Like I achieved it, now I'm done. I can go sailing or go to the beach or whatever it is people do with hobbies. But yeah, so I could go on forever on that topic. But
it's great. And you talk about a meaning of life too. And you've obviously been very open about your faith and how your faith drives your decisions and the way you live. And as sort of a lapsed Catholic, kid who went to Catholic school and has kind of like on the other side become a little more agnostic. I always love to talk to leaders about this because, I bring up this show for all the time, David. In the Bible, I don't think there's any lessons from Jesus that teach you how to lay off 1,000 employees or to fire somebody or something like that. So, as someone who's deeply ingrained in faith, how do you separate that or actually, meld that into decision making and the tough decisions that sometimes leaders have to make that wouldn't cross as very Christian, for lack of a better word?
Well, it's easy to, well, first of all, to have the right perspective. There are a lot of those. I say that I'll probably get in trouble for this, but by somebody in my life. But there are those like lead with the cross. You lead with the cross, but they're like terrible humans,
right?
And so, especially in the South, like you see a lot of that. And so, to answer your question, like there's a lot of good that comes from faith. Good people, regardless of like what the religion is. If you get deep into the religion, well, maybe not all, but then you find like family oriented people that like love each other, care for each other, take care of each other, and then depend on each other. And so there's never there are no conversations. There nothing faith related broadcast within Alpine at all. Never has been and never will be. But I think like the good-hearted nature of those that have faith seems to show or raise its hand more times than not.
Yeah, and you mentioned Alpine. Let's give Alpine a little plug. Tell us about Alpine Intel. What you do over there? What's it all about, Alfie?
Yeah, So we solve complex problems for insurance carriers, property carriers, and so we have a number of lines of service that kind of all do the same thing. We have 10, soon to be 11 lines, and they help insurance carriers to understand complex subject matters where they don't have either subject matter experts or coverage. So things like specialties like HVAC, consumer electronics, residential equipment, generators, solar panels, and a number of different subject matters. But then also we have engineering, fire investigation, and a number of other brands that help insurance carriers get the clarity that they need to make a decision on the claim that they're trying to settle. And so fair, objective findings is what we provide, with all of our brands. The hope is that, by kind of like creating this transparency in the insurance space, that, everyone who has insurance, ultimately one day might pay a little less premium because the carriers are more efficient in paying what they owe. Kind of, nope. In our world, it's very cliche to say it, but I'll say it anyway. Pay what you owe, no less, no more.
You've been very open about talking about the support you've had in your life. And it's so funny. I was just talking to an old coworker of mine who, she says, you told me this 5 years ago, but I've never forgotten it. And it's funny, Dave, I'm sure you've had this where you said something to someone and you forgot that you even said it, but it really struck a chord with somebody. And it was at the time that we were working on a show together, and she just didn't feel like she was being supported by management and by people around her. And I said to her, you need a champion. Everyone needs a champion. There's the whole idea of a self-made person or doing it on your own. It's a fallacy. You need a champion in your life. And at the time she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then fast forward to we speak 5 years later, and she's like, you told me about that. And I realized that my husband is my champion. He's the one who's been my number one cheerleader and supported me and gotten me through the rough times. And so talk about this idea of having champions, because you've had them in your life and now you're becoming a champion to other people, but the importance of having that cheerleader in your life.
I can't imagine making it a day of any other way. I mean, I don't want to embarrass my wife, so I won't go into any detail, but she absolutely is mine. On the important side, I mean, the confidence to make decisions with a champion, even if you make the wrong decision, the confidence to make decisions is much easier. And knowing that someone's there to kind of support you. And we have a number within our organization. We champion each other. I think the thing, if you go to if you're thinking about confidence and decisions, that's what we do in business, right? We just make decisions. You make a decision, you execute on the decision, then you find out if you were right or wrong. And the faster you can do that, the better probability you have for success, because you ready for it? Make another decision and see if that one was right. And so I think the foundation of, to your point, champion is just crucial.
And speaking of your career too, is the idea of what you do. And we kind of went through what Alpine does, but I'm trying to think, what is a young Damon Stafford at 10 or 11 years old? Did someone ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up? And you're like, I would like to work in the world of insurance and provide strategic reinforcements for companies. What led you here? Because I'm always really fascinated by career journeys and how people end up where they are. Was this something that when you were 10, you were hoping to do one day? How do you think you ended up here?
When I was 10 or 11, I was probably I was absolutely playing office, right? I had the stapler and I had the sorting files and making notes and maybe running an order to the other side of the house or whatever it may be. This is the last thing in the world I thought I would be doing, though. I worked for I was with IBM and EMC prior to founding one of our brands in 2011, exposed to the industry by chance, really. But saw kind of the logical steps to build a company. And I had entrepreneurial spirit out of college. And it's interesting. I look back and my experience, I had 3 or 4 different jobs, and they were all like functions of business: recruiting, mortgage loan processing, sales, more sales, managing a branch office for a staffing company. And so I think they kind of all came together. But being in the world of all of these specialties and insurance, we're absolutely not on the vision board. So business, yes. Yeah.
So, Damon, I want to get into your leadership journey a little bit, because you mentioned the steps you took before you decided to start your own company. And I think a lot of companies now are embracing that leadership development programs within their organization so they can grow people to either, become senior leaders in that company or go out on their own. Where did your development path come from? Was it organically stuff you learned? Was there an intentionality to leadership along the way in the companies you work with? Where did that mostly come from, Damon?
It came the foundation came from the first like 3 or 4 roles out of school. Was fortunate enough to have some very charismatic leaders, and I knew it at the time, but I didn't, it's kind of like, I know I want to be like that. They seem to be able to get things done. They seem to be, achieving what they want to achieve. And so I had, there's a company called Insight Imaging, and was fortunate enough to have a couple of great leaders there. One in particular kind of led the way. And then, even in the very beginning, you walk in a room and you just know that person is owning the room. And there were some folks that were really good at that, and then kind of like took me under their wing and maybe gave me a role, responsibilities that was like 5 years from where I should be. And so it was really more kind of like osmosis through like 2 or 3 leaders that kind of took me under their wing early in my career.
That's great. And, I always talk about the importance of C to B, Damon. I'm sure you've heard something, a variation of this, but like we have to see something to strive to become that thing. And obviously you use that you saw what you wanted in other people. And one of the things I always mention too is like, I worked with some amazing talent over the course of my career, but not only did I learn what to do, but I also learned what not to do. Like there were things that again, sort of like how you did, like through osmosis, like you put in the back of your brain, like, yeah, that I'm going to copy that, but I'm not going to do this other thing. What were some of those things you picked up along the way? You were like, yeah, that's not the leader I want to be. Like, I'm not, and not to say that they're bad people, but like their actions were questionable to you that you're like, I'm never going to do that.
I won't name any names, but I had a manager in my career that it was like every Monday he would get his happy hour in, like starting at 2 p.m. And it was one of those things where you're like kind of forced to go. But if you're not there, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't go every Monday, but it's a lot. And I specifically remember exactly where I was. But it was a Monday afternoon, and he says, "We need to talk about your numbers. Like, how are you going to hit your numbers? Why aren't you hitting your numbers?" And I said, "Because I'm at a happy hour every other Monday with you. I need to be on the road." Like, the much better, longer story there, but there's some actions like that. It's just like you walk away and think like, it seems obvious, I know, as I'm telling the story, but I definitely don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
and
what people will realize is the peer pressure that, I mean, obviously that's an extreme story of like, day drinking and stuff, but there's peer pressures like that all the time in terms of behaviors, like where you'll see senior leaders act towards other people and be like, oh, okay, I guess that's acceptable. Like being a dick is fine here. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that's the kind of stuff as in the where you are now as a CEO, you're like, I don't want people to get that through osmosis from me.
Right. That will not happen here. Yeah, that sort of thing. I mean, there are so many decisions in business that are made with limited information based on personal relationships. Not in the office, right? Maybe it is a dinner or whatever it may be. I don't want to pick on one activity over another. But they impact like thousands. They can impact hundreds, thousands of people. and they're made kind of like out of context and maybe not in the appropriate environment. And that's an obvious here. We that there's basis for any and all decisions, quantified basis, and it has nothing to do with like the last conversation, at the trade show bar,
Right.
which is where a lot of this stuff goes down. Yeah.
That's great. And it's I've often talked to Damon about the fact that I could never be an entrepreneur because I could never, and not that I have trust issues, but I can never trust someone to love that company more than I can. And I think if you ask any entrepreneur, they'll probably say the same thing. Like, it's your baby, and the idea of them loving the company as much as you is probably never going to happen. But there has to be a level of, I don't know, substitute love for passion or whatever, what have you. But is that something that you had to struggle with, like finding people that shared your sort of like common ground of like, this is my end game. Like this, I love this company so much, and I'm gonna, it's ride or die. But people come and go. So was that a struggle for you early on?
100%. Still, I mean, it's always hard to let go. In the beginning, it was hard to let go of the client experience or pick a function of business, right? I kind of did it all. We have 9 stages, and I did all 9. Now they're like departments or functions. What's interesting now after writing the book is when I'm interviewing folks, some people will read parts of the book or do light research, and now they have like an unbelievable amount of information about our like philosophies and what we do. And I never know if they're saying it just to say it because they think that's what I want to hear, which likely is, or if it's really them. And so that's been interesting with the book publication.
But it's also in a good, that's obviously the flip side. But on the other side of it is like the fact that you now have your culture fully publicized. Like if people want to join your organization, they know where it starts and ends. So, I mean, you're right. Some people could be pulling like great quotes and they could drop in the interview, but the fact that they know what they're getting into, like you said, maybe over a year, you'll find out that they're not the right one, but in a way it kind of gives you it's almost like it's like your giant billboard of what your company means to people, and instead of them having to be like, well, what is this company all about, or like ask about it in an interview, it's out there in book form. So I think in a way, I think that's a great tip for most like entrepreneurs, CEOs to be like, hey, if you want to explain to people how your culture works, you don't need anything, you don't need any fancy like social media clips or anything on website. Just put a book out and tell them what it's all about.
Yeah, hey, it likely filters out a lot of people as well. A lot of candidates. Maybe we're not right for them, and nobody's time was wasted.
Yeah.
The other thought there is, it did occur to me around the same time as I was thinking about, did they read the book? What if when new team members started with an Alpine, they read the book? How much easier could this be? Like you could be up to speed on who we are. There's so many positives.
So do you have a book club? Is there a book club at Alpine where people can share ideas about the book?
My ego meter goes off, and I've gone back and forth, and I don't really want to talk about it, but I do want to talk about it. I don't want to make people read it. I struggle with that with that balance.
It is a fine line of like, hey guys, we're gonna have a book club, and guess what book? It's
right. Look. Yeah, book 1 through 10. Oh, even better.
That's great. Obviously storytelling is a big part of what you do. You're great. Talking today about like what you've been through. How does that work in terms of developing the connection in leadership? Is this the Damon Stafford? Like people watching, listening to this podcast, is this the Damon Stafford they get in the office, or is this a version of you? Tell me about like how storytelling plays a part in what you do at Alpine.
No, this is me, and that's it. Period. We have folks I've worked close with, over the years, friends that that confirm that this is all you get. And I think that's a incredible positive for the company, that they know what they're going to get. Maybe they want more. Maybe they want a different Damon. I don't know, but this is it.
And in terms of this is it, how did you get here? Like, is this one of the things where you evolved over time? You mentioned the fact that you saw leaders that you're like, oh, I like that. I'm gonna take a little piece of that. How long do you think you took? Because and we started this conversation talking about self-awareness. When did you reach that level where you're like, oh, this is who I am and this is the way I present myself to be? How long did that take along your leadership journey?
So some of the things were some of the elements of who I am, which ultimately in the beginning of a company, the mission, vision, values, like if it's a startup, right, bootstrap, it's kind of the person that started it in some ways, but it's completely adapted over time. And I think when you get a little bit of success and you're trying to figure out how to make more success, you do some soul searching to see how you got here, and then that's kind of how the elements of the book came together. It's completely the evolution of principles, and I know it seems cliche to say, but it's completely true. I wrote the book. I started the first couple of companies that have now become Alpine, but only with the complete drive and support of our team and partners, and I mean that. I mean, they would roll their eyes at me if I said I did it, but they know that I would never do that. That I did this all by myself, and so there's a lot of there's a lot of others in me as we kind of made this journey. And I tell you, from the back to the previous point of getting up every day with the drive to be better. Even since I wrote the book, our company's changed dramatically, in size, number of employees, or all the financial metrics. And there's a long there's a long path of continued development for me, but that's fun, right? That's what we do.
That's great. And I remember someone told me this story, and they said that they ran a company and a bunch of employees, and they said to me, what the worst day of the year for his employees was? It was the day he got back from vacation, because they didn't know what leadership book he had read while he was on the beach and what ideas he was going to implement when he got back. Does that happen to you sometimes? Because
oh my God, I know so many people that are like that. Yeah, that's so funny. I've never heard anyone say it, but I've met that person 1,000 times in life. Yeah, then it becomes a strategic plan, and then it goes all the way down the line. It's like the leading by the last thing you heard. I don't know. I don't really do a lot of reading right now. I sort of stopped, when I wrote the book, because I was terrified of unintentionally plagiarizing something. And so, it's been a couple of years. I still follow and a lot of the great things that come out. But no, I sure hope not. I mean, that to me is the opposite of transparency and being genuine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask my team though. I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, let me know, because it is a catch-22. Because if you think about it, this whole conversation is about your development as a leader, and sometimes to develop as a leader, it's reading, it's talking to people, and it is a fine line of yes, taking all that information, but then implementing it. And I guess maybe it's more of, instead of just implementing it with a hammer, it's more of implementing it with a soft touch of oh, here's some of the things I've learned while I was, sipping pina coladas on a beach. And now, let's try some of these things. But it's so funny. So you've heard of that kind of.
I've seen it play out all, and all over my career. I think when I come back from vacation, it's more clarity of, it's actually more simplistic. Here are the 2 things or 3 things or whatever it may be that I am passionate, that move the needle, whatever the strategy may be or whatnot. And it's get the noise out of the room, more so than I had some grand insight on the beach, and the stars and moons perfectly aligned, and now I have a new plan. So I had that. I'll think about that one though, and I'll get some feedback for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm that guy.
Damon, there could be somebody out there right now on vacation reading your book and then implementing all of the ideas behind it at their office on Monday morning. So there is also that sort of
Hey, that's right. That's a very positive way to look at it. Yeah.
The name of the book is Believe in Better, The Evolution of Core Principles That Pioneered an Industry. His name is Damon Stafford. Damon, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Enjoyed it.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Damon and other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.